Welcome to our final show of the spring of this season of the VEF, and it's a really an exciting one and a very topical one. It's a great pleasure to present the panel discussion this evening, and thank you everybody for joining us. The first thing I'd like to do is just take a quick poll. Who's got a smartphone, and who's got a smartphone that's on? Let's turn the volume down. And also, does anybody have a pager? You'd be surprised. I actually got somebody to say yes once. I bought it from them. I've got the only pager in Vancouver now. So welcome to the Vancouver Enterprise Forum, Vancouver's premier networking event for technology entrepreneurs. And before we start, I'd like to take a minute to thank our many sponsors that help to present this wonderful event series for you. Each of these are strong participants in our technology and entrepreneurship community. They provide wonderful support not only for us, but also for growing startups in our community. I really do stress that you have a look, and you'd be surprised just how much help they can provide before they start charging you fees for some of the services, as well as being tremendous pillars to the community. All sponsors and supporters are profiled on our website. Please take the time to have a look, and we really do have some good service providers here, as well as some strong financiers as well. Also, we are strongly supported by academic community through SFU and UBC, and also the government with the NRC and IRAP. So without further ado here, I'd actually like to point out one of our featured sponsors tonight, which is Colliers International. And Colliers first established in 1898. Wow, that's a while ago. They have grown to become Vancouver's largest commercial real estate services company, providing a full range of the organization. And if you've got an office location, then we have some fast-growing companies over here, which I'm sure use their services as well. It's a great pleasure tonight to welcome back our lightning pitch moderator.
Something that's near and dear to my heart. I've been a women entrepreneur and in technology for 20 plus years. Ethelo decisions.
Testing. Is it on?
Oh, there you go. The green.
I'm Michelle Martin, co-founder of Ethelo Decisions and also a director. So Ethelo is an online consultation platform, and it's pioneering and navigating new ways to make collective decisions online better. What Ethelo does differently is what makes Ethelo unique from other survey tools and other online consultation software is that it's built on a powerful algorithm. And what this algorithm does is ensure that stakeholder support is as high and as satisfied as mathematically possible across diverse stakeholders. So as you can see, unhappy stakeholders, polarized, and here, very happy stakeholders. So what Ethelo also does is ensure that everyone's vote counts. And that's more that we have in our current state of democracy. So what Ethelo does for decision makers is show a clear path forward, even if a decision is incredibly complex. Ethelo's clients includes municipalities, First Nations, the financial sector, politicians, and more. And today is a huge milestone for us. Today we launched Ethelo as a software as a service product to professional facilitators across North America. We're looking to accelerate our marketing and community development. And we're revenue positive.
In 2012 after winning a competition at the University of Cambridge. And I very recently moved to Vancouver, so I appreciate the opportunity to introduce LabScholars to you here this evening, because we're actively looking to connect with potential advisors and investors in the area. So what do we do? Web, scientific papers, and social media. So we are generating revenue and have early traction with users. Importantly, I note we don't just identify products and suppliers in this. We classify products to build complex hierarchies, and identify relationships between products and the people that use them. And this is allowing us to do some very novel and unique things.
Stop.
With that, thank you very much.
Excellent. Okay. I thought I might have rollover minutes for you, but nope. All right. So next will be Lisa Fraser from Snug.
My name's Lisa, and I'm the founder of Snug, a medical device that helps ease anxiety, manage stress, and increase focus and attention. I worked with kids for 7 years with autism, and I really wanted to develop a tool that could help them with their daily lives. This is a boy named Johnny, and he has autism, and he's squishing himself between the couch so he can calm down, because pressure actually has a calming and relaxing effect. These are some products in the market for providing pressure to the torso, which inhibit mobility or are very ineffective. And our solution, which I'm wearing right now, is an inflatable vest that provides evenly distributed and adjustable pressure to the torso. And the individual wearing it can control the pressure, which actually promotes independence. Not only do children with autism use our product, we also have customers with post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, and ADHD. We've also proven a reduction in cortisol and adrenaline, an indicator of stress. We have won several international awards in recognition for our technology, and we're currently developing a high-tech version of the Snug vest. We have over 400 customers around the world. We just launched our product about a year ago, and this is the first teen to ever receive a Snug vest. His name's Danny, and his dad says that the results are phenomenal. The product calms him down immediately when he feels anxious, and unlike medication, it doesn't have any side effects. So right now we're looking for partnerships with autism organizations. We're also looking always for new talent to build our team. And we're also looking for customers. If you know anybody that has a sensory disorder or a major anxiety problem, let them know about our vest, because it could potentially change their lives. And we also have a 60-day money-back guarantee.
Fantastic path. A couple of hands. Great. And how many of you have heard about the incredible Maninder Dhaliwal? Yeah. So these are examples of some of the entrepreneurs that we've worked with at Futurpreneur Canada, formerly Canadian Youth Business Foundation. See what based on your unique needs. We then help you make sure that you get access to other resources that are in town, like some of the great community partners and sponsors that you see listed here. We work with about 150 organizations, or entrepreneurs rather, a year here in BC, about 1,000 nationally. What's great about that is that when you become part of the Futurpreneur, I knew I'd do that, the Futurpreneur Canada community, you really do get connected to a lot of the resources that we have. An example of a program that we're running nationally is the Spin Master Innovation Program, and it's for entrepreneurs that are running innovative companies, and we actually fly you out for Toronto twice during the next year if you get part of that program. Myself and my colleague Humaira will be in the back if you have questions.
Oh, excellent. Unfortunately, we don't have rollover minutes, so you still only get 100 seconds. So next we have Annalea Krebs from Ethical Deals.
Hello, I'm Annalea. Brands to market their products to consumers. This is a $60 billion opportunity, $7 billion in the natural and organic market that I know. And where this really comes from is this understanding that people trust experience, not ads. So we've created a platform that we're referring to as a social sampling platform where people can try natural and organic products for free in return for writing a social review. We launched our beta last month, and there was a campaign which we invited 500 users to. 25,000 people signed up. It went viral. That was in 1 week. And to try this natural and organic chocolate bar. It generated thousands of word-of-mouth impressions for the brand that participated. So our social sampling platform is generating word-of-mouth marketing that we know is the #1 influencer of purchases. We're backed by GrowLab, Canada's top accelerator. We're raising $500,000 to move this new business model forward. We're launching this summer. We have a booth up front where you can try natural and organic products for free and be first in line to receive our free samples launching this summer. I'm really interested in talking to investors.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
She'll be out in the booth in the back. So. Great. Thanks, everyone. Great job. And hopefully this was good practice from you. And, you're going to do better next time. But great job, everybody. And Tim, if you want to come back and introduce the panelists.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to invite the panelists to make their way up onto the stage as well. It's always nerve-wracking the first time to do the lightning pitch, and they get better and they get easier as life goes on. And I have to say that some of them have been remarkably successful. I remember just a couple of years ago, some guy named Ryan came up here and said, "I've got this new app. I call it Hootsuite," and we know where that one went. So it's true. So it's a good spot to start off. So I'd very much like to welcome our panelists here and our moderator, Maninder Dhaliwal. I'd just like to say a few words about her. This is a very impressive lady. And she is currently the vice president of the Pacific Autism Family Center Foundation, which is a center of excellence for autism spectrum disorder. And a lot of people don't really quite understand what the center of excellence is. They don't hand those out lightly. Those are fundamental centers chosen by the government of Canada as being the place where the research gravitates to the most impressive group of people. So this is not just any sort of center of excellence. This is one of the top ones recognized by the government of Canada. And a deserving person here. She is not only an electrical engineer, but also a graduate of the Harvard School's Executive Education Program. It humbles me to be even part of this stage. So I'd like to invite Vanedge to come up and take the stage and introduce the panel for us.
Thank you, Tim. Is this thing on? Well, thank you. I'm always, when introduction is so impressive, I can't wait to see what I'm going to hear, what I'm going to say next. Can we get the next slide? Yes, as Tim mentioned, I'm an electrical engineer. Sorry, did we? Okay. I'm an electrical engineer, and there's many advantages to being a female engineer. Hey, that was... I haven't gotten to the joke yet. Many advantages to being a female engineer. You get to work on amazing projects. You get to work with incredibly smart people. You get a cool pinky ring that I don't have on today, but I have one at home. You have to take my word for it. And if you ever go to a conference, you don't really have to wait in line for a washroom. This is a rather entertaining picture, but there is a sad story behind it, and I will tell you why I find that story sad. Technology shapes our lives. Where we work, how we play, how we live is decided by the technology of our times. Where the world is facing enormous issues. We have climate change. We need alternative sources of energy. There's a shortage of potable drinking water. Devastating diseases such as autism that's affecting a lot of people that need a cure. All these things need advances in STEM, that is science, technology, engineering, and math. And half of the world's brain power is missing from the table. So half of the brain power of the world is literally missing from the picture. So that's why I find this story sad. The next one. Sorry, I had a clicker somewhere. Thank you. The next one. If you see, all my slides have sources. I'm an engineer, so I'm very particular about details. But this one doesn't have a source of where I found it because I couldn't find where it originated. I speak 3 languages, and I was able to find some kind of a cartoon in each of those languages across the world. Different versions. So this is the cartoon. So this is such, I would say, a widespread issue across cultures, across the whole geography of the world. Studies have shown that there's a little difference between girls and boys in math skills at a young age. They have same skills in analytical reasoning, spatial skill, logic, the skills that form the basis of mathematics, and STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. But around middle school, which in Canada would be junior high, age 11 to 14, the girls start to fall behind, and they keep falling behind through the rest of their academic lives. This is the age when they get messages from society, what they should look like, how they should behave, what they should be interested in, and the fact that they may not have brain required for something as tough as mathematics. The US study shows that women make 77 cents to $1 made by their white male counterparts. Women of color are even more disproportionately harmed by this gender gap. African American women in the States make 64 cents to every dollar. Hispanic women make 56 cents to every dollar. So there are 265 occupations noted in that study. In 264, the women make less for doing the exact same work by bringing the exact same qualifications to the table. There was a Paycheck Fairness Act introduced in the U.S. House early April, and all the Republicans voted against it, so it failed to pass the House. And the act was supposed to make it equitable pay for men and women for doing the same work. I think I've taken the fun out of this cartoon, haven't I? You can still laugh, it's okay. The investors in the tech world, they decide which startup gets to be a company and which one don't make past the pitch deck stage. Less than 80% of the VCs in the US, less than 8% of the VCs in the US are women. And when you want to look at the high-level people who actually make decisions, this number falls to 4%. And what does that lead to? Less than 2% of investor money goes into companies that have women as co-founders. And that is just women or a mixed group. So even if a single woman is part of the co-founder group, the money is 2%. The 98% goes to all male co-founder groups. Ethnic minorities, it's about the same. You can see the numbers. Caucasian, mixed, Asian. So what do you think an average successful tech entrepreneur look like if you keep both these stats in mind? I actually used to like InSync when they were big, but so this is where we are. But I would say the fire and brimstone part of the presentation is over. Things are better now. Young girls growing up, they don't have to imagine that, is it possible for me? It is. Great strides are being made. They're being made publicly. They're being made openly. They're being made on the cover of magazines. They're being made on Amazon bestseller lists. So the girls know it's possible for them to do what all these ladies have done. And progress is being made across the globe. 6 out of the 18 co-founders of Alibaba are women. There is also a pipeline of graduates ready to join the next wave. STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. 31% of the bachelor degrees in the U.S. This is the U.S. stats, but I believe the Canadians would be the same. 31% bachelor degrees, 41% of the PhDs. And this is where women, it's a socioeconomic issue to solve because the male-female wage gap is smallest in STEM jobs. Women with STEM education make 33% more than their non-STEM counterparts. If you look at the historical data and compare, things are going in the right direction. It is not the hockey stick chart that most startup pitch decks have, but they are headed in the right direction. This is the investment money that's gone to the female founder. It's gone from 4% to, sorry, I can't see the end there, 13%. Thank you. And this is the total money that's gone into women co-founded startups, and it is heavy on the pink industries of the 4 Fs: family, furnishings, fashion. What is the last one? I had it written down somewhere. So it's family, furnishing, and I will tell you the one before the presentation ends. I'll remember it. So with this as the background to the event, I wanted to ask the audience a question. If you are a woman, have you been in a situation where your gender has affected you negatively? If you're a man, do you know of a situation where a woman was negatively affected because of her gender? Show of hand, yes. Show of hand, no. Show of hand, you haven't really thought about it. You're just here for the food. So with that, I would like to welcome the panelists. And would you like to introduce yourself, starting whichever place you would like? Kate?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kate Bilenki. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of PlentyofFish. And as some of you may know, PlentyofFish is a tech company in the online dating space. And it was started right here in Vancouver. I started with the company about 6 years ago. I was the first employee, and today we employ around 75 individuals, and we were able to grow our member base to about 80.
An iron ring. Excuse me. I'm a mechanical and materials engineering and I used to work in heavy manufacturing and finance for the past 10 years.
Startup side for about 7 years and the venture capital side for about 8 years. So I've seen both sides of it and have worked with men and women. So it'll be interesting to share some stories.
Hi, my name is Maura Rodgers, and I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a mother of two. I'm also married to a technology entrepreneur. I've been starting and advising and investing in technology companies for the past 15 years. Most recently, I sold a company called Strutta, which is a social promotions platform, and I'm focusing on a company called Perch, which is they create ambient video walls to connect two or more spaces so you can be closer to the people that you work with daily and also your family.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Greenhill. I am co-founder and CEO of MyBestHelper, the platform that helps families find the most amazing help at home so they can actually live their life maybe less stressed. So nannies, babysitters, house cleaners, it's fully operational in Vancouver. And I've been waiting 2 years to be able to say that if you want childcare, there's an app for that. Yes, there is. As of 2 weeks ago. We're currently in an accelerator called Invoke, which has been a great experience, asking questions about that later on. I guess the reason why I'm on this panel is, and it might sound really funny, but until I had my first child, I didn't realize that I was a woman. I always thought of myself as a physician, as a leader. And then suddenly people kept saying, like, not inviting me to committees because they're like, well, you're going to be at home now. And you're like, what do you mean? I'm an emergency doc resuscitating people 7 months pregnant. And, like, which part of that makes you think that I can't sit in a committee representing my province? And so I had a chance of meeting somebody who had a physician to the snowbirds, Dr. Karen Backer, and she introduced me to the whole space of women studies, and I hadn't realized that some of the things that I was dismissing as occasional occurrences were actually a pattern. And then my career really started rocketed. So I was in charge of $100 million project implementing electronic medical records, and now I'm in the tech space. So moving from medicine, where there's not enough women in leadership, to tech space, where there's not enough women in leadership. But the sign of progress that I see, and I welcome to everyone who's attending tonight, we're talking about it, and there's more men than ever in the audience. So thank you for all the men who joined us tonight.
The first question would be, I showed you the slides of where we think women are in the tech space. Where do each of the panels think the women are in the tech world? Are we doing well? Are we doing worse? Are we doing about the same? It's a group of women, so I'm not going to name anyone. You decide who's going to start.
I'll start. I'm with a venture capital firm, so we see companies all the time come in and pitch to us. Because we're Series A, we're very objective about what we need to see to invest in a company. So from where I'm sitting, I don't feel like we discriminate at all. I think we want a really good idea with revenue, with growth, with a great team. We'll take a man or a woman. We don't care. We care about what you're bringing to the table and who you are. But I will say you don't see as many women coming through the doors. So that's a lot of the reason why you don't see as much getting funded. And so we have to start changing that. And I agree with you on one of your slides that it is starting to change. We're getting more women in kind of that STEM education and coming through, and we'll see more women coming through. But right now, it's nice to see women come through. It is nice. But I'd have to say from our side, and I hope that's maybe not across the board, but for our firm, we love having women in there. It's nice to have different perspectives, and I think it adds to the product. If you have a company and you have no women on your team, you're missing a perspective. It just makes sense from, how do people think about a product? How do they use a product? What do they think about with a product? It just makes sense to have both men and women. If you have a company that only has women, I think you're also doing a disservice to your product, and you should have men at the table as well.
I can chime in. Most recently at a previous company I was with, just recently in the past 4 months, I was really, really proud to see that 50% of our development team was men and 50% was women. And, you know, in my previous company, it was all men. So it was really, really nice to see that more and more women are, you know, getting positions in technology companies, in development positions. There's things like, you know, I think a lot of the accelerators have helped that. I think that companies like Lighthouse Labs, which are doing and learning to code, women learning to code, those kinds of organizations are really helping more women gain access to technology roles. And I was just really, really proud to see it. So I do think that we're not worse. I think we're getting better. And it's nice to see more and more women at the table.
If I might chime in after this, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but in my spare time, I am, because I have so much of it, I am a director of a nonprofit organization called Polyglot Software Association, and our mandate is to educate, to provide community-driven and collaborative advanced education for software developers. We put on a conference every year, and this year it was our 3rd annual conference. And the conference is always a smashing success. We've had over 250 people, software developers, this year. It just happened this past weekend, and I could count women in that room on both hands. And we're hoping that it's getting better. It's definitely getting better. Women are entering tech space through different avenues, not just through software development. But when you really look at that core group of like software developers driven, and it's just sort of keeps staying in the single digits in the conference. And I would love to see more representation. And it's not for the lack of trying. We try our best, and we even have a woman director, right? So it's getting better, but I would like it to be faster, because an entrepreneur, I'm antsy and I can't wait.
I'd like to echo that, actually, and I will speak on 2 sides. So as the tech sector is growing and as it's gaining popularity, I do see more women being interested in it, and in terms of roles like product and management and leadership.
From the theory, there's the practice, and just give you a sense, most of the meetings I'm in on a daily basis, especially a lot of people, people who know me know what I've accomplished. And I've gotten a whole bunch of awards, top 40 under 40, blah, 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 for work that I've done. People who don't know me walk in and see a woman, and they usually assume, based perhaps on past experience, that this is going to be a small idea. I'm going to have less experience than somebody else, and I don't have what it takes to take hard decisions. And so if I can quickly, within the conversation, give them a sense that this is not what they assume, then they perk up and listen, and our conversation ends up being completely different. And so some of it has to do also with the way I present a position and the way people take it. I remember my first, I was where Kate was when I first started thinking about this idea and just focused on family. I went to the Agile conference in Vancouver, which had 250 developers, me and a 3-month-old baby with this huge stroller. And I kind of said, do I, don't I? But I had no choice. There was no website to help me with childcare. So I was amazed at how welcoming everybody was. And these guys in the room, they were like, hey, I have a 3-month-old. Can I hold her for you? Do you want me to give you a break while you go to the washroom? And so the entire space was super awesome. And then I pitched the idea at Vancouver Startup Weekend, and I said, how many of you have kids in the room? And 5 hands went up. And I said, the rest of you are going to have to trust me. This is a big problem. And I ended up with a team of 9 working on it. And so that whole assumptions that's in your head that needs to be checked with reality, I think is something that's really important as a message to get out. So I love getting out and meeting other tech women. We belong to a couple of groups of tech women starting to organize. And that society, that community is important to get out, because is there a difference? Of course there's a difference. There's a difference from somebody who's a different color. If you actually say that doesn't matter at all, I think that you're completely out for lunch.
Wow. The next question is also for you, Alex. Since you've made such a good point. She's one of the people who actually, we see something in the newspaper, we just roll our eyes and put it away. She actually writes letters to the editor. like on a regular basis. She does. So, we talk, there is conscious bias and there is unconscious bias. When people discriminate and they don't even realize they're doing that. People would make patronizing comments like, I'm not sure if you realize what you just said was hurtful. Talk to the audience a little bit about the discussion that we had about the article about the dressed up entrepreneurs.
Yes. Well, a quick example of unconscious bias. Women's studies, and I didn't know that, but my friend who's done research in that showed me the article, said basically when you're introducing a man, he usually gets full name, full last name, title. When you introduce a woman, she usually gets first name and if that abbreviated. So then I realized that everybody was introducing me as Alex instead of introducing me properly as Dr. Alexandra Greenhill. And a whole bunch of things improved after that. So when you read even media articles and you review how reporters comment on the person, if it's a woman featured in the article, that bias persists. If you're not aware of it, you would never notice it. But does it make a difference? Sure. The article in question that got me, and I always respectfully just point it out, and the response has been amazing because usually people respond back and saying, I didn't realize. I was so busy doing, I didn't clue it in. But the Canadian Business, which is a great Canadian publication that I receive at home, sent this spread saying what the tech CEO looks like. It has an article featuring 4 really well-dressed men entrepreneurs in Harry Rosen suits. And so if you actually looked at that, it's a fabulous showcase of my colleagues who are men who are building fantastic companies. But if in 2013, this was in December, what a tech CEO looks like is 4 guys in a suit, then we're missing somehow the diversity that exists around here. And I look pretty good in a suit too, and I think a number of us do too. So I just pointed out that I can give them a hand and give them same thing as oftentimes you look at tech events, panels, and you're basically like, hey, you may not be aware or connected, so here's a list. And so I have a list. It keeps growing. If you want to be added to the list, just let me know. But the response is always very positive, and people are like, I didn't realize that. And I've had mentors, and many of my mentors are men, who when you share some of those points, they're like, oh my God, I just did this to somebody. I didn't realize that. Thank you for pointing it out. So there is a way of overcoming some of this bias, but both men and women are guilty. So Conference Board of Canada study said that women hiring for a position often fall to the same biases. So it's not just a men versus women issue.
Thank you, Dr. Greenhill. Did anybody else want to?
Men versus women, race versus race, nation versus nation. We kind of have to be hyper vigilant on ourselves and put in checks and balances around ourselves in order to avoid it. For example, at the conference, somebody mentioned that at their company, in order to avoid the...
Any discussion about women in technology and investment would be incomplete without Paul Graham and the firestorm that has been created. Some people say storm in a teacup, and some people say firestorm. Do you want to elaborate?
And he was then later on legitimately misquoted in the publication that was done by this journalist. The question was omitted, and his answer was redacted. That what he said is, the way it showed up in the publication is that we can't make women programmers who haven't been programming since they were 10 years old or something along those lines. What he actually said was, we can't make these women programmers who haven't been programming for the past 10 years. And because the question was omitted, you can understand why the journalist removed the word these. And then Paul Graham went on to write 2 articles, one called What I Didn't Say, believe it, Y Combinator's percentages on female founder has gone up in the past 2 years. It's gone from 9% 2 years ago, and the winter cohort of 2014 has 24%. So kudos to them. They're doing the right thing. They had a conference and all of that. But I just want to and implement this in the worst possible way. And he didn't mean it, but at the end, that's what he said. So it's really important that you have a wide audience if you are in a position of authority and privilege, and if you're an icon in the startup world, that you really watch what you say.
Well, to further on that, assumptions is something that absolutely lives within us. I was reading the Andreessen blog, and it was detailing the story of the CEO, and at some point I encountered the pronoun she. And I said, I clearly missed. Who is the she in the story? And then you go back to the beginning and you realize that all of his blogs are written from the perspective of she being the CEO, and the CEO being a she. And so his partner Horowitz just published a book, which is fantastic, The Hard Things About Hard Things. And the entire book, anytime he substitutes for CEO, and it's generic CEO, it's always a she. So the 500 startups with Paul Singh and Dave McClure, so many organizations are now stepping up and saying we want to make a difference. What's interesting is yesterday on Twitter there was a storm of people saying, hey, I'm a white guy and this is completely not fair. So there was so many retweets and conversations about that. And so I don't know. I mean, you'd like to think that you're getting in on merit, but somehow the situation has to change. And your cartoon made me laugh because my daughter was in grade 3 when she came home. She had a horrible result on her math test. And you're like, oh, come on. We're math people in my family. And she's like, oh, yeah, Mom, it's not cool to be a girl and be good at math. And I said, what? And so we had a long conversation. We corrected the situation. And she won 2nd place at some award in mathematics. And so things are looking up. But have we solved this problem society-wide? No. And do we need to support people who are trying to make a difference? Yes. And so misstatements, and the press plays an interesting role because the selections that they make around who is featured and how they're presented and all that do make a difference. And even the awards, I mean, so many people just presented top 30 under 30, top 40 under 40. I can't find it credible that 50% of those award winners can't be women. I just, I really appreciate the award, but I really hope that if I'm given a chance to be in one of those committees, we actually find 50% of the award winners to be women.
Following up on the conversation of white guys having their own hashtag on Twitter, we're talking about getting, as women, we get labeled. But when we have a panel of women in tech and we talk about where we are and all, so where are men in this conversation? Our other half? Are we discriminating against men now? How are we going to cross that point where we're taking jobs away from them? Or what's happening to the men in the last 10 years that we saw the charts for the women? Anybody can take this question. I think Maura, you wanted to take that one.
Did I? Well, I was thinking that it would be really interesting to have a male on this panel. I do think that, it's as I work myself through these things, because I used to organize a bunch of technology events, and, there were predominantly men at those events. And at one of the last events that I organized, it was a co-founder speed dating event. And it was, really to find your co-founding soulmate. And a good friend of mine, Angela Baldonero, organized the event with me. And she came up to me at the end of the event and said to me, it was a good event, but they're all men. And so through that, I started to organize like these curated dinners with women and doing certain things that I could do to support women. But then it always becomes a challenge because what do you lose when you don't invite men to that conversation? So I don't know. Anyone else want to chime in?
I think in an ideal world, everyone would be judged on the merit of what they do, but studies that show that you present the entire exact same business case, but you substitute name, men and women, people are like, well, this person's 75% more likely to succeed. And so I think without men, we wouldn't be here. I have an amazing co-founder who happens to be male, and, he is the reason why I can do a startup and have 3 kids at home who are under the age of 12. And so the support and the society provides, the people who listen to what we have to say is just, the change I've seen personally in that space around how much more intelligent the conversation has become is great. And so many people now are just, before it used to be I'm for it or against it. It's like black and white. And I'm really glad that we're actually seeing it more as a gray pattern and seeing as all of us contributing to it, including us as women hiring women or us as men hiring women, vice versa.
I did want to chime in. Oh, sorry. Did you want to go? I was just following up to a point where we were talking about hiring before, and I was saying earlier that I was proud that the company that I worked for had 50% developers on male and female, and that's because we made it a point. Like the CTO is actually a male, but he recognizing that he was a male and and most of the people that he worked with were men, realized that even the hiring process for developers was sort of skewed towards men. So it was really interesting trying to take a different approach to sort of attract more women to the organization and also, hire more women into the development team. And he succeeded doing that. So, yeah, I think that it's good to be aware and,
Yeah, I agree with that. I also think, we sit up here all women and we talk about, starting to see things change, and we're trying to get up there and trying to get into the VP levels and higher management and C levels. And whenever you really start turning around and looking back into your household, in a lot of families, because these women are going into the VP and C levels, all of a sudden a lot of their husbands are like, well, it makes sense for you to be there, and I'm going to be there with our children, or I'm going to work a little bit more at home, or whatever it is. And you start actually seeing the tables change very quickly to, a husband being at home with an infant and they have no support network, and they're going to mommy and me, play dates. And, why isn't it baby and me? And why aren't the women supporting the men to stay at home and make them feel confident and make them feel good about that choice and having better networks? So I think you can easily turn that table very quickly as we constantly ask for help and guidance and support from partners and fathers and brothers and coworkers. And, women have to also turn the corner and help supporting men in them wanting more balanced lives and them wanting different things as well.
We saw the study with the New Yorker cartoon and the stats, and the study said that women lose over $400,000 over their lifetimes because they make less per hour per year as compared to men. And Kate and I had a really interesting discussion about the gender equality policies at PlentyofFish. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure thing. Thank you. So PlentyofFish is a little bit unique for a technology company in that 40% of our workforce is women, and 75% of our top tier management is made up by women as well, which is, I think, pretty uncommon for a technical company which wasn't necessarily founded by women. And so I do feel that women bring a unique set of skills and qualities to the table. And for a company like PlentyofFish in the social space, these qualities can be quite invaluable. And if you think of some of the other bigger companies in the same space, like Facebook or Etsy or Instagram, so the social space, they're heavily dominated by the female user. And they're also all about sharing and connecting and building of community and creativity. And these are the skills that are quite innate to women. And so for us, we put a huge focus on optimizing the user experience, the female user experience, and make sure that we have women in roles like product and marketing and design, and sort of really get into the mind of that female user, and that's quite vital to our success. Where we do still see a shortage is in technical roles, and I'd love some pointers from you as to see how you were able to fill 50% of your vacancies with women, because even if we tried, I mean, for a technology company that's moving very quickly, you really can't spend months and months looking for the right candidate. And we don't hire based on gender. We hire based on fit and based on skill. And I do think that speaks quite highly for where we are as women today, that we are qualified and experienced and are able to occupy these top level positions. But in technology, on the technology side, we're still hovering at around 15-20%. So, and speaking from personal experience, I've had many women throughout my 6 years at PlentyofFish approach me and asked to be moved into a new area of the organization, or
that if you think about 10 leadership skills that an executive should have, Which three do you think are absolutely core? And people hiring, whether they were men or women, said, I would like somebody who has a good idea of the vision of where the company is going to go, an ability to execute on it, and if there's a it doesn't come across that they can do the other three things. And so the interviewer says, well, she's clearly not a good candidate. So that subtle change and adjustment in how you present yourself, say, I'm really good at all of those hard skills, but I really think that this is something core that will sustain and build a real strong organization. And so I'm in the F space. I didn't know about the 5 Fs, but now, yes, I'm in the family space. But I'm in the family space because I think that it's a great place where you can have a really big billion-dollar idea, make a really big company, and do something that actually impacts real people. And so there's a different way of describing what I do that actually then resonates with the people who want to invest in me. And that's something that I didn't come up with. I actually went to courses and, people pointed those things out and they helped me be more effective at explaining what I'm good at and what I care about, which may not always be the same things.
I will comment that sort of the new style of leadership that's emerging is all about, empowering and inspiring, and not so much sort of that old school macho style. So I do feel that women really will excel because I think intuitively that's what we lean towards anyway. So perhaps that's why we're seeing more leaders emerge who are women.
I just have a comment about, not dealing with your own shortcomings, and it's a personal story, and it's something that I've learned a lot from in the past. But when I got hired by a tech company in 2009, when I accepted the job, I didn't realize that I was pregnant. And so it's a new job, and I was pregnant at the time. I hid that pregnancy for a good 4.5 months. My husband at one point said, you have to tell people because you look like you're wearing a muumuu. Because I was afraid that they would let me go within the first 3 months. I know it's illegal, and I know all that, and you know all that, but you can't help that there's going to be some constructive dismissal deal, and something's going to happen where they're just going to say, okay, you're pregnant, you're going to go anyways, so we're not. So I didn't actually tell them until they officially hired me past the 3 months, and it was like, in hindsight, it's so stupid. Like they can't. I should be able to say it's a very biological thing that happens. Or Kate's pregnant here. She's, and what? She's functioning just fine. And trust me, if I could give it to my husband, I would.
Can I piggyback on that?
Yes.
So I will say that I completely understand what you've gone through, and in fact, I'm quite secure in my role. But the first thing I thought when I discovered I was pregnant was, oh my God, what am I going to do about work? And sort of spent the next hour frantically sort of strategizing, and only after that hour sort of came that, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a mother and all the wonderful stuff that you're supposed to experience. But the first thought was, holy cow, what's this going to mean? But what I also know, and I can't be ignorant of this, it just so happens that I was one of the first, very, very, very first women at PlentyofFish to become a mother. Our staff do tend to be a little bit younger, but I can't be ignorant of the fact that we have so many women at some point, very likely some of them are going to want to start a family. And so what I decided to do is actually, start having those conversations and really understand where each and every one of them is at, or at least some of them that feel enough trust in me to sort of open up about their plans. And so I know of 3 women in our organization who, and I know sort of their timeline for starting a family. And what that does is, one, it really helps me plan, right? Because once you're announcing that you're going on mat leave, which happens around sort of say 4 or 5 months, I don't have a whole lot of time to plan for that maternity leave. But if I know a year or 2 or 3 sometimes in advance, then that really helps me prepare. And for our female employees, it just gives them that sense of security that their employer is going to do what they can to make them comfortable and to retain them and to secure their position. And so I've had these candid and very comfortable conversations, and I encourage those of you who employ women, employ people to do the same. It's worked wonders for us. So.
That's awesome. I've seen a lot of that firsthand. As a physician, I've actually followed enough women and seen them through pregnancy and delivery and maternity leave, and I've never, in over 10 years of active practice, seen a problem with an employer. So Canada is actually a good place. The US may be slightly different, but definitely encourage everybody to. But the one most important thing is that for everybody who says, when is the right time to have a baby when you're thinking about career? And it's never the right time. They're always an inconvenience of some sort. If if the timing is wrong for any stage of your life, so might as well get over it. And the one thing I would say is do it early, because some of the people who do delay, there's a biological reality where if you wait too long, you're going to end up having to wait and maybe not, and maybe go through in vitro and all that. That is super anxiety provoking. And the other big myth out there is that every woman wants to stay at home with their baby for an entire year. And so the famous study said 2/3, so 67% of women would stay at home with their child if it didn't impact finances, didn't impact their career. And everyone's like, see, the majority of women want to be at home with their kid. And you're like, wait a second, 67%, and I'm good at math, means 1 out of 3 women actually would prefer to go to work. And, baby stage is fantastic, but when they get into the older age, like my kids that are getting to 8, 11 years old, and they become interesting and they want to talk about God and the universe and the future of humanity, that's the stage where I want to spend more time with them. And so I was really glad to have them when I was really younger.
6 months into my maternity leave, I'm like, get me the hell out of here. Give me something to do. I need to run something. But I just want to add on that, there's not going to be a Women in Tech panel without Sheryl Sandberg coming up either, right? So about 4 years ago, she did a TED Talk, and really the 3 pieces of advice that stuck with me, and 2 of them about being a mother, was sit at a table, which was, when you're in the conversation, make sure you're in the conversation, and that even if you are the only woman at the table, like Alexandra has often been, and myself as well, make sure that you're heard and that you're participating in the conversation. The other one was don't leave before you leave, and this is referring to women who check out of their careers about 5 years before they actually have children, because they know that at some point in their lives they're going to have children. And she actually uses a real example from Facebook, where a girl walked into her office and started talking about her career path and the career planning, and said, so when I have a baby, and Sharon went, oh, congratulations, I didn't know you were pregnant. She goes, well, I'm not. She's like, oh, well, are you trying? What's going on? Tell me, let's talk about it. It's an exciting time. She goes, oh no, I don't have a boyfriend yet. And so she's planning for her mat leave without a boyfriend, without any, it's just, don't do it. It's going to happen when it happens. I didn't plan for mine, and everything worked out as well. And the third one is, and this is probably the most important one, and the one that I have taken to heart the most, is make your partner a real partner. Obviously, men can't bear children, so we kind of have to do that. But that's only about 20 weeks of time. The rest of it, they can be a 50% contributor to the childcare and the parenting. And when you leave your child at home with the father, it's not babysitting, it's parenting. So I really... I really want, and that really made an impression on me, and I kind of live by those rules. And my husband has been supportive, and I can honestly say he is a 50% parent, and he pulls his weight as much as he can and whenever he can, and it works.
Yeah, I have 2 brother-in-laws and a brother all staying at home with their children in their early years. So I'm totally skewed on the other side, because that's usually what I've seen. It says something about my sisters. But another point in the Sheryl Sandberg book was the lean in and sit at the table. And this was kind of interesting because my experience was so different. I walked into a board meeting. I was an observer on the board. And so all these men were around the table. And so I grabbed a chair and I put it back behind the table, as you do. And my boss was like, get up at the table. And I was like, no, like, I'm an observer. I shouldn't be talking. I'm just here to, you know, watch and have conversations with him later. And he was like, get at the table. Because I realized I had so much information about the company that he needed me at the table to be there. And I was like, oh, sorry. And I grabbed my chair and I got in. And it just happened to be when I was reading her book. And I was like, oh, I can't believe I did that. And so I was shocked at myself about doing it. And I just read it and it just seemed like this crazy thing. And then I went to work, you know, the next week or something, and I was talking to one of my coworkers, and he was saying, I said to him, you know, whenever you go to your board meetings, because I knew he was an observer on another board, I was like, do you sit at the table or do you sit off the table? He's like, well, I sat off the table, and then Paul was like telling me to get up at the table, and I was thinking, I'm an observer, why should I be at the table? So totally agree with sit at the table, but the other side is as you're going into different roles and you're doing things, ask questions. Like, it's okay to make mistakes, ask questions. Tony and I both did it. It wasn't actually a female thing. It was just because we were observers and both kind of thought we shouldn't be at the table. But, you know, it's just one of those interesting things. It's not always because we're female. It's a lot of times because we're learning. And so that's okay too. And ask lots of questions. So
this is an interesting one because ask questions in particular, definitely agree. But again, evidence, there was a study showing that when offered a position, women would typically say, ask a whole bunch of questions. And the problem with that is the person listening interpreted that as, I'm not that interested. What men did was almost identical, but they first started by saying, yes, I'm interested, tell me more, and then asked all the questions. And so try that and email me if it works, but it's made wonders. Can I just get back to something that Thea said, and we haven't talked about that, but I think that the whole 50-50 is another one of those black and whites where everybody assumes that it's like 50% of the time exact. And so I think what's amazing is to find some sort of a balance where it actually makes sense. And so some husbands are happy to stay at home. I have a husband who loves his career, and he and I both have very busy lives. And our nannies and helpers and other families who help out and make our lives possible. What's really awesome is when you can find the part that the other person enjoys doing and the part that you enjoy doing, and then fit in something else to make it. So it's not a 50-50 black and white split down the middle. And I think that's what you meant. Because I think it's amazing to see when men step up, the kind of things that they expose their kids to. And I have kids who can use a screwdriver and a drill better than most handyman, and they think that going to Home Depot is a pretty cool place to be. So, you know, give it a chance. Men do step up to the plate. Do they get funny looks sometimes in the stores? Yeah, but then I think that they inspire a number of other people to do the same. And so it's all a question of like discovering what are you good at, what do you like doing, and what should you stop doing. And so I've mentored a number of women who sometimes were older than me. And one of the things that we basically did is an analysis of, you know, which part do you have to delegate or just decide I'm not going to do in order to create the space you need in order to focus on what you really want to do. But for as long as you imagine your home being perfectly immaculate and perfect garden and handwriting all those notes to friends and whatnot, it's not going to happen. There's too much on the go. And so if you let go of the audience.
Sure. Yeah, we were talking about well, everyone sort of touched on this a little bit in their responses, but yesterday, he doesn't know how to play a lick on the guitar. And so I'm driving to drop him off at school, and my husband and I are driving it together, and we're kind of like chuckling, but holding back, going, what on earth are you going to play? And he said, well, I'm going to play Smoke on the Water. That's awesome, and trying to be very encouraging and supportive. And then we get out, and he gets out of the car, and he's got his electric guitar because he couldn't find the case. So he's got his electric guitar and his backpack over his shoulder, and he's holding his guitar up, and he's going to school. And I'm like, rock on, like, you go for it. And what I found was really interesting is that he doesn't know how to play the guitar, but he's still going to compete in that talent show. He's going to be a pro soccer player as well. Whereas my daughter played soccer, and it became too competitive, and she started to back out. And I just find it fascinating that he went through and did that. And I find that we've talked about this. We talked about encouraging and empowering more women, but some of the things that hold us back is confidence. You touched on that. It's lack of confidence, and they say their statistics show that women won't go for that promotion unless they get if they can fulfill 100% of the requirements needed, where men will go for it if they've got 60%. And it's just, I see that in my own children, and we're both entrepreneurs. We're both going into work and trying to support them and empower them and to see that they can do anything. And there it is, right in front of me. I'm seeing those differences between my own son and daughter. And so, the biggest lesson is that I'm not saying to be more like a man. I don't think that's the lesson. It's just to embrace what we're good at and believe that we can, and not wait until we can get 100%, or we can play Smoke on the Water like Deep Purple. Like, get up there and do it. And if you have that desire, you have to believe that you can. And so I think that's just really interesting. That I think that's some of what's holding us back. When you talked a little bit about women speakers, I know lots of women that put on events, and a lot of the speakers are male, and they'll get called out for it, and they say that it's not for lack of trying. So they reach out to women and they say no. And so why is that? And I don't always feel comfortable speaking, but I just say yes. Just say yes, get myself out there, and figure it out. So
yeah, just say yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies. I think we're ready to take some questions for the audience.
I need some water.
Everybody's just sitting. Okay. Okay, I have to send this microphone.
You can yell it.
Just yell.
Okay, I can yell. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I wanted to pick up off the question on something you said about how you have to have conversations with your staff about planning their careers and maternity leave. But it's also to Maura's point, also that thing about not checking out before you check out. Do you ever feel like you've got even a slight bias, like thinking about, oh well, she's not going to be here in a year, maybe I'll just throw off the project? Does that ever happen?
Not at all. And the women that I do know who are planning on starting families, they're not starting them for 2 or so years, and they're not sort of roles that are requiring larger projects that I will consider not putting them on. But reasonably, it's not like you decide to have a family and that happens, right? So you plan together, and you obviously plan for some redundancy. And so if she decides that in 2 years she's getting married, and in another year she would like to try starting to have kids, you plan, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. And if it so happens that there's a 3-year project coming up, which absolutely never happens at Plenty of Fish. We turn things around very quickly, and but if it does, then that's another conversation for us to have. But having that transparency and giving her the confidence that her job is secure, and we'll bring someone on to take care of things for her, and when she comes back, when she can pick things up where she left them off, kind of thing. But no, I haven't encountered that at all. I think if I had a male employee approach me and tell me that he would like to take a paternity leave, I would be ecstatic about that. Absolutely. Yes. Yes, absolutely. And to be honest with you, when I first started thinking about this, I wasn't thinking that I would be the second woman in my company to be pregnant. And I had a longer term plan that clearly failed miserably, but I was thinking about it before my own situation was of any concern. So, and at that time I thought babies were silly. So, and I do think because I'm a woman, I'm more likely to think about it. But clearly, there are plenty of male employers out there who, more CTO there, who think about women and their needs and things like that. So
I'm surprised companies don't talk about it more. I had a good girlfriend of mine who was pregnant. She was actually working at Molson Canada at the time, and shout out to Molson because this story always blows me away. I remember her saying like she was going for this promotion and it was down to 3 people of who was going to get it, and she just found out she was pregnant. And so she had this huge guilt. She was like, how can I take this job away from somebody else who's going to be here when I'm not going to be here? She's like, it's so unfair. Like, I have to tell them that I'm pregnant, even though she was, a month or 2 in, and usually you don't really talk about it with your employers before 3 months. And so she went in, told them about it, and Molson gave her the job. And I was shocked by it. I was like, that's amazing. And why companies don't talk about stories like that, of being there, getting the right person for that job in that job, because, women are still going to come back and do that job and be a part of it. But it was just, I was blown away by Molson. I couldn't believe it. I was like, that's an amazing story. And so it's good to hear you talking about this with your employees, because it makes sense. It's going to happen. So why have all the fear around it?
Exactly. But to add to that is it does put a cog in the wheel. I mean, December 2013 is when I was making plans for the year of 2014 and everything that I was going to accomplish in that year. And at the same time, I found out I was pregnant. And did I have to alter my plans? Absolutely. And am I taking on large projects myself? Absolutely not. I'm wrapping things up and I'm preparing for my departure. And even though I am taking a short leave, nonetheless, my year is impacted. Absolutely. But it's life. And I think it's something that we all have to expect and embrace and plan for. And it's no big deal at the end of the day.
I just want to encourage employers who are in the audience, if there's anybody that, just like yourself, when you have these conversations, it is utterly important that you also have them, or with the male part, like the male employees, even if they're not necessarily planning the paternity leave. I have actually witnessed something pretty bad in a company that I worked at, is that I went for lunch with a coworker who was male, and within the past 3 months, 3 women had announced, or 3 women had gone. Anyways, it was like the year of pregnancy. It was just everybody was pregnant, and we were having lunch, and somebody that day had said that they were pregnant, and we're having lunch, and he said, "If I were the head of the company, I would not hire women of childbearing age because this is getting ridiculous, and now I'm going to be overworked and blah blah blah." And I'm like, jaw dropped. I'm like, what? I was a woman of childbearing. Anyways, it's just important to break those barriers and to educate those people to actually understand that this is just something that happens. And guess what? You wouldn't have your precious company and you wouldn't have this job because we wouldn't be here on this earth if we didn't have babies. It's a species propagation. It's basics, Darwinism. So it's just important to make it a company culture and not necessarily have those conversations behind closed doors and one-on-one. Well, obviously the private parts, but the general underlying message should be open.
I think you got the entire panel going, but very quick points, and then we're going to move on. But I think some of the assumptions have to do with what we believe. And so I got a lot of flack from other women for taking a very short maternity leave, because with my first one was emerged, and I went back 3 weeks later. I was feeling fine. I was ready. The emergency room needed me. I had support and backup. Second time around, I was in an executive role, and they gave me a whole year. And I have projects I care about. I don't want the whole year. So I think I took 6 weeks off, and everybody was like, "You're a traitor to the cause. We fought so hard to accomplish a year maternity leave, and here you are coming back so quickly." And you're like, well, the cause should be about choice. It's not about 1 year or mandatory whatnot. It's about choice, about choosing what's right for you and your family situation. And good employers recognize that maternity is one reason why an employee may be distracted, but if you have an illness in your family or one of your children who has an ongoing health problem, you're not going to be as present and available and all that. And so good employers accommodate for that, and they build organizations that really excel. And so this is not just a pregnancy and maternity leave issue. This is an entire understanding of how the family unit functions and how what happens at home impacts what happens at work.
do an offshore model. I don't know how many startups actually look on like to find a program that's built in India that a lot of large organizations are using. So then a lot of projects will supplement with contracts. And I found that any technical contracts we have yet, right, they're all there. Right? Because women, I've seen that they had a problem becoming a contractor. So like if the contract only a year, right, they're not going to get extended at that contract where a man would, even though the woman says, I'll work part-time after I have my baby. Right? And I've seen soft skills being different between the men and the women. Because we fly resource over from India that have like, I don't know, let's say ABAP programming skills. So they're programming in ABAP, and the women were really quiet, did like just what was assigned, and didn't really speak on that. But the men were looking at like what's going on and all that kind of stuff, and wanting to get their foot into, you know, other areas or basically get a higher ranking or rating in our organization. So, do you guys see this at your firms where you recruit offshore, or where you recruit contractors, and the soft skills?
We don't really. I mean, the one thing that I've learned in the tech space, and I'm just still relatively speaking a newbie, is that we've looked at outsourcing, but there's so much core competency that has to happen as part of working a team, especially if you're building a really big company, that we usually hire people here. I'm really glad the question, if people couldn't hear it, was all about offshore recruitment and how is it different between men and women from other cultures as well. And I think when you start looking at women, fascinating. And the part that really gets me up and going is that we've made progress, but in the last 30 years, if you actually look, the progress is scaled back somewhat because more and more women in the workforce, but not for women, because from what I've seen is sometimes it's actually better. I think there was a question.
I think we have, all the time we have questions, but you guys will stick around?
So the only man to ask a question.
I know, he has to wait. Sorry, discrimination. So thank you, ladies. Tim, your turn.
So sorry to cut you off, but we're standing between everybody, the bar. Some of the staff need to go home. But anyway, it was a fascinating conversation, very interesting. And just one quick one, that last question on cultural differences. I do have one interesting story to relate. I spent 15 years in Japan, and that is definitely a male-dominated society. And I've got a shout-out to Merrill Lynch Japan. It personally harmed my bank account because I'm a recruiter, executive search, and I had introduced this wonderful woman to a bank which will go nameless, but they do have letters HSBC attached to them. And the HR manager gave me a lecture on what HSBC needed in a leadership in Japan. And apparently this woman, Izumi Kobayashi, did not have that leadership quality. And when the folks at Merrill Lynch got wind that she was looking to move on, they promptly named her the executive director, representative director, and CEO of Merrill Lynch Japan. She went on 3 years later to be named one of the 50 business people to watch, not business women, but business people to watch by some rag called the Wall Street Journal. And she's currently, I think she is in line, she's an EVP at the World Bank right now and in line to be the CEO of, or in the succession plan thereof. So that is it took a lot of, boldness for Merrill Lynch Japan to say, we're going to break the mold and we're going to put the best possible person in charge, and we're going to tell a society which was very much male dominated. And I think that's one of those wonderful opportunities for me to be associated with some very intelligent people. And subsequently, since Izumi became CEO of Japan, as Merrill Lynch Japan, we've got CEO of Deborah Hewson of Odlum Brown here in Vancouver. Had an opportunity to have a chat with her, and she said, Tim, I'm never going to go on I hate these panels about women because this is about performance. And half of the executives at Odlum Brown are women, and she boldly stated, I don't care. Performance is what got us there. And it just so happens that these are the top performers, and they're going to exceed. And I'm pretty sure the CEO of IBM got there because she deserves it. The CEO of Xerox got there because she deserves it. And the CEO of HP got there to deserve it. So there's a lot of people to look up to and say, I think we've come a long way in the last few years, and I'm proud to be in this society and watching tech what's we're doing. So sorry, that's me going off. I have to thank a whole bunch of people here. Thank you to the British Columbia Women in Energy Network, Entrepreneur Mum Now, E-Women Network, Futurpreneur Canada, Mum VEO Academy, and CWIST, Society for Canadian Women in Science and Technology, who helped promote tonight's event. Thank you all for coming. Please, these are the ones that helped to promote the event. Everybody, please grab a beer, have a chat, ask many more questions, but the rest of you are free for the evening. Thanks so much for going. Thanks.